In April of 1241, on the flat, marshy plains of eastern Hungary, one of the largest and most confident armies in all of Christendom was waiting for a fight. Tens of thousands of men, a sea of iron-clad knights, disciplined crossbowmen, and soldiers from across the Kingdom of Hungary, stood ready. They were led by their king, Bela IV. Before them lay the Sajo River, a natural moat protecting their huge fortified camp. They were confident, maybe even a little arrogant. They believed their position was unbreakable. They believed they were about to crush a strange army of horsemen who had stormed out of the east. They were wrong. This wasn't a fortress. It was a tomb. Across the river, a single mind was preparing to turn their greatest strength into a catastrophic weakness. He wasn't a king, and he had no royal blood. He was a general, a man whose entire life had been a masterclass in the art of annihilation. He understood that to defeat an army this massive, you don't fight their bodies, you fight their minds. So, how do you destroy an army that outnumbers you and holds a fortified position? You don't storm their walls, you convince them to leave them. This is the story of Subutai, the most brilliant and ruthless general of the Mongol Empire. It's the story of a tactical masterpiece of deception, a battle where an entire army was lured, piece by piece, into a trap of its own making. This is the story of the Battle of Mohi. By 1241, the name Mongol wasn't exactly a secret in Europe. It was a whisper of pure terror, a rumor of a storm gathering on the horizon. For 2 decades, this unstoppable force had poured out of the grasslands of Mongolia, led first by the legendary Genghis Khan, and now by his son and successor, Batu Khan. They'd already consumed empires in China and Persia. They had shattered the Kievan Rus, leaving a trail of smoking cities in their wake. They were like a force of nature, a military machine the world had never seen. And now, their target was the heart of Europe. The Kingdom of Hungary stood as a formidable barrier. Led by King Bela IV, Hungary was a major power, a bulwark of Christendom famous for its incredible heavy cavalry. Bela knew about the Mongol threat. He'd even given asylum to thousands of Cuman nomads, fierce steppe warriors themselves, who had fled the Mongol advance, hoping to add their strength to his army. But this act of defiance just made the Mongols angrier. To them, the Cumans were escaped subjects, and by protecting them, King Bela had just sealed his kingdom's fate. The Mongol invasion of Europe wasn't some simple, charging horde. It was a meticulously planned, multi-front offensive, orchestrated from thousands of miles away. The great Khan Ogadai had ordered the campaign, putting his nephew, Batu Khan, in overall command. But the real architect of the invasion, the commander in the field, was Subutai. His plan was a classic Mongol strategy: divide and conquer with overwhelming force. To make sure Hungary wouldn't get any help, Subutai sent a northern army of around 20,000 warriors under the princes Baidar and Kadan. Their mission was brutally simple: invade Poland and neutralize any potential allies. They moved with terrifying speed, and on April 9th, 1241, at the Battle of Legnica, they met a combined army of Poles, Germans, and Teutonic knights. The European force was annihilated. The northern flank was now secure. All of Poland had become a buffer zone, stopping any aid from reaching King Bela. The trap was closing. At the exact same time, the main Mongol force, about 50,000 strong, was driving relentlessly toward Hungary. They didn't take a single route. They poured through multiple passes in the Carpathian Mountains, catching Hungarian defenses off guard and spreading chaos. All these armies, operating hundreds of kilometers apart, moved in perfect concert, a terrifying testament to the sophisticated command and control of the Mongol war machine. and they were all converging on a single point: the Great Plain of Hungary, where King Bela was gathering his army for a battle he thought he could win. To really understand the catastrophe that was about to happen, you have to understand the man pulling the strings, Subutai. He wasn't royalty. He was the son of a blacksmith from a humble clan. In the rigid, aristocratic world of medieval Europe, he would have been a nobody. But in the meritocratic empire of Genghis Khan, he was a living legend. He joined Genghis as a teenager, and his loyalty and almost supernatural talent for war saw him rise to become one of the Khan's 4 hounds, his most trusted and ferocious generals. By 1241, Subutai was in his mid-60s, a veteran of over 20 major campaigns, who had conquered more territory than any other commander in history. Alexander the Great, Caesar, Napoleon, none of them could touch the sheer scale of his conquests. He had campaigned from the Pacific Ocean to the Caspian Sea, defeating the armies of Jin China, the Khwarezmian Empire, and the Russian principalities. His art of war was a terrifying mix of speed, intelligence, and psychological terror. He was a master of maneuver warfare, coordinating armies hundreds of miles apart like they were pieces on a game board. He understood the value of engineers in sieges, and was one of the first generals to use heavy artillery, like catapults, not just against forts, but as a decisive weapon on the open battlefield. Crucially, Subutai's entire strategy was built on a foundation of intelligence. His armies were always preceded by a network of spies who mapped out the land, found political divisions, and sized up the enemy's strength. He never walked onto a battlefield he didn't already understand. This allowed him to operate with an insane level of autonomy. Genghis Khan and his successor, Ögedei, trusted Subutai to wage war thousands of miles from the Mongol capital, confident he would deliver victory. For the invasion of Europe, he served as the chief strategist and field commander under Batu Khan, a grandson of Genghis. This was a delicate setup. Batu was the royal prince and overall leader, but Subutai was the old, seasoned military genius. Tensions simmered. The younger, prouder Batu could be reckless, while the older Subutai was patient, calculating, and utterly ruthless. It was this combination of royal authority and strategic brilliance that was now poised on the banks of the Sajo River, ready to teach Europe a lesson in warfare it would never forget. As the Mongol columns converged on the Great Hungarian Plain, King Bela IV made his move. He gathered his massive army. Some estimates go as high as 100,000 men, though it was likely closer to 60,000, and marched east to meet the invaders. His army was magnificent, a conventional European force. At its core were heavily armored knights, the tanks of the medieval battlefield, backed by well-drilled crossbowmen and a huge body of infantry. Their morale was high after a small victory against a Mongol vanguard, and they were feeling good. They made their camp on the west bank of the Sajo River, near the village of Mohi. The river was wide and deep, a formidable natural defense. The only way for a large army to cross was a single, long stone bridge. Bela's strategy was simple, and by European standards, pretty sound. He would use the bridge as a choke point. Believing his army heavily outnumbered the Mongols, he thought he could hold the bridge forever, grinding down the attackers. His camp was a massive, fortified wagon lager, with wagons chained together to form a defensive wall, a literal city of war. From this secure position, the Hungarians watched the far bank, waiting for the attack they knew was coming. They believed they controlled the battle. This was their first and most fatal mistake. They were playing checkers, thinking only a few moves ahead. Subutai was playing chess. He had no intention of fighting Bela's battle. He wasn't about to throw his men away in a bloody frontal assault against a fortified choke point. While the Hungarians were staring at the bridge, Subutai's scouts were already miles away, riding along the riverbank, unseen. They were doing what they did best, gathering intelligence, mapping the terrain, and finding the weakness. And they found it. Several kilometers south, hidden from the Hungarian camp, they located a shallow ford where the river could be crossed on horseback. It was completely unguarded. The entire Hungarian army was focused on the bridge, totally blind to the threat developing on their flank. The moment Subutai got this report, the battle was decided. The fighting hadn't even started, but the intellectual contest was already over. The trap was now set. All that was left was to spring it. The battle began in the dead of night on April 10th. While the Hungarians rested in their camp, sure of their position, Batu Khan launched the first part of the plan, the diversion. A group of Mongol warriors stormed the Sajo Bridge. The Hungarian defenders, led by the king's brother Koloman and Archbishop Ugrin, were ready for them. A fierce, bloody fight broke out on the narrow stone crossing. The Hungarian crossbowmen took a heavy toll, their bolts punching through Mongol leather armor. The first assault was beaten back. The Mongols retreated, leaving their dead behind. For a moment, it seemed the Hungarians' confidence was justified. But this was exactly what Subutai wanted. The Hungarians were now completely obsessed with the bridge, pouring more and more troops into its defense. Their attention was locked. Back in the Mongol camp, things were tense. Batu Khan, having lost men in the failed attack, was reportedly furious and blamed Subutai for the delay and the casualties. But the old general didn't flinch. The first part of his plan was working perfectly. As dawn broke on April 11th, Batu attacked again. But this time, he brought up Subutai's secret weapon: siege engines. Huge catapults, normally used to shatter castle walls, were now being used as field artillery. They unleashed a storm of massive stones and flaming projectiles, not at the bridge itself, but at the Hungarian defenders packed together on the other side. Under this terrifying bombardment, the crossbowmen scattered. The way was clear. Mongol horsemen swarmed across the bridge, finally setting up a bridgehead on the western bank. While all this chaos was happening at the bridge, the second decisive part of the battle was already over. Miles to the south, Subutai himself had led a massive force of 30,000 cavalry across the hidden ford under the cover of darkness, completely unopposed. As the sun rose, Subutai's entire force was now on the same side of the river as the Hungarians, swinging north in a wide arc to get behind them. The Hungarians, still fighting Batu's forces at the bridge, had no idea what was coming. The encirclement was sudden and shocking. Just as the Hungarians finally managed to form up and push back against Batu's bridgehead, horns blared from the south, from their rear. Subutai's cavalry crashed into the back of the Hungarian camp. The surprise was total. The Hungarians realized with dawning horror that they were trapped. Mongols in front of them, Mongols behind them. The pincer had snapped shut. Panic ripped through the Hungarian ranks. They scrambled back into the supposed safety of their wagon fort. But the Mongols didn't charge in for a close-quarters brawl. Instead, they formed a loose ring around the entire camp and began a systematic, merciless slaughter from a distance. A storm of arrows rained down from every direction. Flaming pots and explosives launched from catapults turned the crowded camp into an inferno. Trapped with nowhere to go, the Hungarian army was being methodically dismantled. This is when Subutai played his final, most brilliant card, an act of pure psychological warfare. As the carnage inside the camp reached its peak, the panicked Hungarians noticed something strange. On the western side of the Mongol ring, the line seemed to waver. A gap appeared. It looked like an escape route, a path to safety. It was a lie, a carefully engineered illusion of hope. Subutai had ordered his men to deliberately open a corridor, to pretend to be disorganized, to invite a breakout. The Hungarian command structure had completely disintegrated. All order was lost. In a desperate every-man-for-himself stampede, the soldiers and knights began to flee. They threw aside their heavy shields, lances, and armor, anything to run faster. They surged through the gap in a single disorganized mob. This wasn't an escape. It was a funnel leading directly into a killing field. As the terrified Hungarians poured out onto the open plain, they weren't an army anymore. They were a helpless, fleeing crowd, and the Mongol horse archers were waiting for them. The final phase, the annihilation, was brutally efficient. The Mongols didn't need to get close. Their light cavalry simply rode alongside the fleeing column, endlessly firing arrows into the unarmored backs of their enemies. For 2 days, the pursuit continued. The plains of Mohi were littered with bodies. The great army of Hungary, one of the most powerful in Europe, had ceased to exist. In just 48 hours, it had been utterly and completely annihilated. The defeat at Mohi wasn't just a military loss, it was a national catastrophe. The Hungarian army wasn't just beaten, it was erased. Tens of thousands were killed, including the flower of the Hungarian nobility, 9 bishops and 3 archbishops. The slaughter was so vast that Mongol soldiers were reportedly ordered to cut an ear from each corpse to get an accurate body count. King Bela IV himself barely escaped the battlefield, becoming a fugitive in his own kingdom. He was relentlessly hunted by a Mongol detachment under Kadaň, chased from town to town until he had to flee to islands off the coast of Croatia. With its army destroyed and the king on the run, Hungary was defenseless. For the rest of the year, the Mongols ravaged the kingdom. They burned the city of Pest and pillaged the countryside, killing up to 1/4 of Hungary's population. Terror gripped Europe. Pope Gregory IX called for a crusade against the invaders, but no one could assemble an army capable of facing them. It seemed nothing could stop the Mongol advance. Austria, Germany, and Italy lay open and vulnerable. And then, as suddenly as it began, the invasion just stopped. In December 1241, thousands of miles away in the Mongol capital of Karakorum, the great Khan Ogedei died. Mongol law demanded that all princes of the bloodline return to the capital for the Kurultai, the great council to elect a new leader. Over the objections of Subutai, who wanted to press on, Batu Khan had no choice but to honor the summons. In the spring of 1242, the Mongol armies turned around and began the long ride home. Europe was saved. Not by a great victory, not by a heroic last stand, but by the death of a single man on the other side of the world. The tide pulled back, but the devastation it left behind was absolute. King Bela would eventually return to his shattered kingdom, earning the title the second founder of Hungary for his tireless efforts to rebuild from the ashes. The Battle of Mohi stands as Subutai's ultimate masterpiece. It was the culmination of a lifetime spent perfecting the art of war. His victory wasn't just about battlefield tactics, it was a triumph of a complete military system. It started with intelligence that revealed his enemy's weakness, was executed with flawless coordination and maneuver, and ended with an act of psychological manipulation so profound it convinced an army to take part in its own destruction. At the heart of this victory was the feigned retreat. This was more than just a tactic. It was a weaponized understanding of human nature. Subutai knew that panicked or overconfident enemies would break formation, that the instinct to chase a fleeing foe or run for an open escape route is almost impossible to resist. He preyed on these instincts, turning his opponent's own mind against them. It required incredible discipline from his own troops, who had to convincingly fake a retreat without actually breaking, but the results were devastatingly effective. Subutai didn't just defeat the Hungarian army, he deconstructed it. He isolated it with a strategic feint into Poland. He pinned it with a diversionary attack. He enveloped it with a hidden flanking maneuver. And he annihilated it by offering a false glimmer of hope that lured it into a perfectly laid trap. He never fought his enemies' fight. He made them fight his. The name Subutai isn't as famous in the West as Alexander or Caesar, yet he conquered more of the world than both of them combined. He was the strategic engine behind the largest contiguous empire in history, a general whose campaigns were so sophisticated they feel modern even today. The battle on the Sajo River was a terrifying monument to his genius, a stark reminder that the most powerful weapon in any war isn't the sword or the bow, but the mind that wields them. And in 1241, there was no military mind on earth more formidable than Subutai's.